call the February 1st Monessen City Council work session to order. Roll call, please.
Councilman Breaker.
Here.
Councilman Orchakowski.
Here.
Councilman Coles.
Here.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Sherrod.
Here. Please rise for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to open the floor to public comment on agenda items only. Okay.
Are the minutes posted?
The minutes,
I mean, I'm sorry.
the agenda.
The agenda.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's over here on
it's on the door.
No, is it posted online?
I did not get a chance to post it online, but it is posted on the door.
Well, that's a problem.
No, it's not, because the building is open.
Yeah,
So for the advertisement for the meeting, did it indicate how the petition would be submitted?
No, it did not. I don't believe so, John.
the. No.
Okay.
But we did
So,
post it on the door.
Currently, the Office of Open Records and their guidance for the Sunshine Act, while COVID's going on, is that it needs to be posted somewhere to the public in accordance with the advertisement that was provided. So if it's not spelled in the advertisement, then at the very least it does have to be posted there at the building for anybody who would be coming to the meeting to see if they came to the building. But in the future, like I said, especially if we post it in the advertisement and it's going to be available online, we want to make sure we post it online.
Right. But yeah, it is posted on the window, technically, not the door, but the window.
Is it easy for anybody to see if they wanted to see it?
Yeah, it's right along the sidewalk there.
Okay.
Um,
And keep in mind, I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, it too is because it's a work session meeting. I mean, for the actual voting meeting next week, I mean, I'd absolutely recommend that it be available online for anybody that wants it. But
Yeah.
once again, because any action has to be taken after the public's had the opportunity to comment, the public can still comment after any action or before any action, I should say, at the next meeting. So we're still good because it's an agenda/work session meeting. But if there was a concern about that, they could address it at the next meeting. Once again, I'd recommend having it online before the regular meeting next week.
yeah, I could post it online. We have Monessen Fire Department number 1 here to discuss the fire department's financial issues. So all of you or one of you want to just come up and present? Yeah.
Okay. One of the financial issues that we're having with the fire department, and paperwork has been turned in at the courthouse almost a year now, but because of COVID, we can't get a hearing, and it was recommended to come see Yins, and we're also going to approach the school board about this issue too, to see if something could be done out, while we're waiting for that to go on up there. The issue is our taxes at Grand Plaza are totally outrageous compared to a lot of the properties in town comparatively.
Excuse me, Matt. Are they close enough to the mics? Because I can hardly hear them.
Here, let me point. And if you could just speak up a little bit.
Okay. Our taxes up at Grand Plaza are running us a little over $15,000 a year. Here, city taxes are $5,405. County taxes are $2,694. School taxes are $10,166. We're totally getting crushed. Being a volunteer fire department, we're struggling to make it as it is. We get, you know, other than our fundraising, you know, we get $5,000 from the city a year, which, you know, doesn't cover a whole lot when you start going through these bills. You know, it's, go to maintenance, you know, we have a set of tires is, you know, for a truck is close to $5,000 alone. Truck just went out 2 weeks ago to get PM inspection, stuff like that, $2,234.
Hey, Matt,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I can't hear a thing.
I was getting ready to ask Tim, can you guys hear him?
Tim's also on the phone.
Yeah, I'm also on the line. I can't hear anything either.
I thought it was just me.
No.
Yeah, if you want to just, you can stand over here.
Come right here.
He'll just stand closer. Sorry. With the masks too, it's like, you know, muffles.
Yeah, I just, we don't want to not hear what he has to say, that's all.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, like I said, yeah.
Okay, can you hear him now?
Put it closer to him now. Close. There you go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, like I said, we just set a truck out, it's, you know, $2,234. You know, aerial testing on the, for the annual, testing of the ladder truck is, $690 every year. You know, annual pump testing, $450. So that $5,000 doesn't go very far, as you can see. You know, set of tires can eat that up, oil change, you know, a couple oil changes on the trucks, and that $5 grand's gone. We don't get any other tax money from the city. We don't, you know, other than our fundraising that we do on our own, and whatever we can try to apply for in state grants and that. We haven't been able to get a federal grant in I don't know how many years ago.
2008.
2008. You know, we're trying to update all of our SCBA's are pretty much at the extent of their life. Our
They're a year
gears,
out.
huh?
They're a year out.
Yeah, they're a year out. Our gear is pretty much past its life. It needs replaced. We've been trying to put in for grants for it. What we're looking to see is if there's any way that the city would back us on eliminating our city taxes up there at that property. Like I said, we're going to approach the school board for the same thing, you know, to see if they would be willing to do that. We do have paperwork in for a hearing at the county, but because of COVID, that's been a year. The new taxes are coming out, so there's another $15,000 coming out for this year that we didn't have the hearing in time, so we're going to be stuck with those taxes too. Last year we were late, we got them paid for the year, but they're late every year. Most of those properties are empty up there. You know, we just lost another tenant up there. We're not bringing in all kind of rental property up there on those, you know, ear income on those properties. And you know, we're struggling to get this stuff paid. And that, doing away with the taxes would really help out a lot, you know, considering what we do for the community. You know, same thing, that's what we're going to approach the school board, you know. Anytime they want buses coming in for parades, for championship teams, boom, we go down and do it. They want bonfires, they want pepper rallies, we load up trucks and go up there and do it free of charge. You know, take the trucks up there, our manpower, volunteers, you know, we went around with Santa Claus this year, you know, you were with us and that. You know, what we do for the city and the community, free of charge and everything, you know. We're looking to try to see if the city can help us back and the school district can help us. And we thought we'd start here because if Yuns help us out, then going up to the school board with your backing would hopefully sway them a little bit too.
So you want to make the Plaza tax exempt?
Right, that's what we're trying to get out of it. We do have, and that's, you know, one of the things we're going to try using is we do have a facility that we've turned in, one of the offices up there that was just, it was too big, it wasn't going to be rented out, needed a lot of work, so we've turned that into a training facility. We go up there, we do hose advancements, smoke the building up, you know, live training up there. Us and Hilltop has been going up there up until we got shut down because of the COVID. Before the holidays, we were going up there on a weekly, every Tuesday, and training together up there. So you know, the part of the property is being used as a training facility now. So that's,
How much of the property did you say, Steve?
you've been using the Alpine and the doctor's office.
That's a good chunk of
Good
the
chunk.
About a third
property.
of it?
Yeah, I'd say probably a third.
About a third of it.
Tim, what would the process be for us to do something like this if we wanted to move
Yeah,
forward?
so the city has a couple options there. So it sounds like you guys with the fire department, you've already submitted the paperwork to have it deemed tax exempt, which would exempt it from the city's taxes, the school district's taxes, and the county's taxes for all years going forward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good, good. So that's a process that is already in play and is already moving forward. It sounds like, obviously, like you said, that's exactly right. There'll be a hearing, and you'll need to provide information at that hearing to support the request for an exemption. Now, if the city wanted to, the city could, after we've taken a look at the facts to determine whether or not it qualifies for an exemption. If we've determined that it does, the city could offer a letter in support of the exemption for the fire company, and then you guys could use that at the hearing, which is something then that the tax assessment board would take into account in evaluating whether it qualifies for an exemption. The other thing that the city could do is the city has the ability, obviously, each year on a yearly basis to forgive, exempt, and exonerate the taxes for that specific property. Each year, they would have to do it each year, and that would only apply for the city taxes. And once again, you always want to be careful of making sure that you're consistent across the board with an exoneration like that, because you need to make sure that any similarly situated taxpayers that could make the same request, and that would be a similarly situated taxpayer, you're also considering their exoneration or abatement or exemption request for that year's taxes the same way that you're considering this one. But those would be the two options that the city would have right now to provide some help and some assistance and relief for the fire company on that specific property.
Does anyone have any questions for them?
Run me the numbers. What do you pay to the city every year? Taxes?
Taxes. City, our face value is $4,914.54.
Say $5,000. And the county is $2,000?
$2,449.86.
And 10,000 plus to the school district?
Yeah, 10,166.18 to the school.
What would you say was your total from last year?
Face, they're a little over 15 once you start, once we got behind and have been trying to play catch up on them. It was
19,000?
Yeah, a little over like $19,052 when I went up and paid them. There's a lot of properties in Monessen that, compatible, the taxes are just outrageously low compared to what we're paying. We've looked on tax maps and everything, and it's just, the old health center building is half of what we're paying.
The mill too.
Mill, Frank's, the health center, Gary Boatman is that plaza down there is a lot less than what we're paying. The old city hall is peanuts. Castle Blood, barely paying $100 in taxes. Woozy's Holt got half a block of storage sheds. And we're not picking on anyone. We were just looking at properties and just coming up with
What was
comparable, and we're not, like I said, we're not picking on anybody or pointing fingers at you. We were just looking at comparable sizes and pricing, and we're just, ours are just outrageous compared to some of these other ones.
Does anyone else have any questions? So, well, what's that?
Mr. Gill,
Uh-huh.
I think it should be really given some really strong consideration, considering that what they do, the fire department does for the city,
Mhm.
and the other aforementioned businesses that the person speaking there mentioned, that they're for profit, and they don't do anything, as far as I'm concerned, for the city helping, you know. And I think that the request and what they're asking for should be really given some strong consideration. I really feel that way.
Lois, Tony, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have any negative about it, because they do provide a service that everyone needs and may need at some point in time in their life, and they do put their own lives on the line. Like Tim said, that we just want to make sure that whatever guidelines, we got to make sure, because I have no problem doing it for, but once you do it for one, believe me, there's going to be somebody else coming up saying, well, you did it for one and not for me. But I know this is a like you said, nonprofit. I agree with you. This is a service provided to the people, and I'd be hard pressed to find people upset about us doing that for them, since this is a service that we all may need one at one point in time in our lives.
Right.
But still, there has to be something that we have as like some kind of basis, so that we don't have everybody coming up to us after this asking for exoneration on their taxes.
Yep, that makes sense. Tony, do you have anything to add?
I agree with Lois. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. I think it's something that anything we can possibly do to help them at all times is something we should do. I am just concerned, like Lois said, about the floodgates opening and everybody beating down the door, and you know, we can say, well, look, this is for an extremely worthwhile cause. Come on, people. And they're going to come back and say, well, I'm closed because of COVID right now, and I'm losing money, and I'm barely holding on, so mine's just as important, and if you don't do mine, I'm going to sue you. That's what I'm afraid of.
Well, if it's a profit organization, that's where the fight comes from. We're speaking, and I'm speaking about non-profits, not profit organizations. That should lessen the blow. You know, you do something for the city, we're going to help and try to do something for them.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that we should talk about it more and consider it. If you have any other information that you feel that we should have, just let us know, like between now and next week. Maybe you could get it to John, and then he'll pass it out to us.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, you do want to consider, you know, how this particular request would relate to other requests in the future. Certainly, as was pointed out, it's a good point that, you know, the fact that it's a volunteer fire company that serves the city, that is one thing that could distinguish it from other applicants. You also want to look at the specific use of the property. The city will have to take that into consideration. But, you know, those are the sorts of things that the city will want to flesh out in more detail and make sure that everybody's comfortable with, that it's distinguishable for supporting this as opposed to, you know, maybe not something else before, you know, taking sort of a vote on it for you guys. But there is, like I said, there is a way to do it where you're protecting the city on the back end. In the event you would get more requests like this, it's just making sure that you've got, you know, all of your facts and you've done your due diligence to create that sort of a distinction, you know, at the outset.
That makes sense.
Aren't we an entity of the city though?
What the?
I mean, in your council units are over top of us.
Actually, the
Bureau of Fire.
Bureau of Fire is, and Bureau of Fire is part of the public safety. So when you guys actually, when the whistles go off, when the call comes in, you actually become city employees. That's why we cover you with the liability insurance.
But I thought both fire departments were an entity of the city. Like, I mean, from 1898, there was no Bureau of Fire. It was us.
You have your own EIN number?
Yeah.
So
And
do we.
501c3.
so do we.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure that we're an entity of the city, we're affiliated with the city. Tim might be able to answer that question better than
No,
I.
that always confused me. I don't know if, Tim, do you have
What's
anything?
what's the specific question? I mean, I heard kind of
If,
questions about.
if the
and
fire,
that
de-
is-
if the fire departments are an entity of the city, we have the Bureau of Fire, which consists of the municipal chief, and then we have the 2 fire departments. So the question was if they are an entity of the city.
Okay, so no, I mean, I'll do a quick review, but my understanding presently is they're not actually entities of the city, although they're affiliates of the city. So for a lot of different purposes under Pennsylvania laws, different statutes and whatnot, the fire companies in the city are affiliated, and so that qualifies you for some different funding and things like that. But as a legal matter, they're not entities of the city per se, as what I think is being meant when people say that. So they're affiliated, but they're not actually entities of the city, where they're kind of a subunit or a subcategory of the city. And typically, the best indicator of that is for if there's any sort of if the subunits have to provide a full and complete audit to the city of all funds that run through that organization. If that's the case, then typically that would be indicative of it being a subunit of the city. But if that's not the case, then that's also by proxy a good indicator that they're not a subunit of the city or an entity of the city.
Okay.
But I'll look that up. It'll be real easy.
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, you read some of the ordinances, and it says about the fire department, like the council can tell who can be the fire chief and who can't be, and all that stuff, so.
That's because we're affiliated with it, and they can control certain functions of ours. But,
I understand, looking at the snowball effect of other organizations coming back, while you let them have it, but, just, throwing this out there, you've been doing this for how many years, so I want to tell you that, we're one of the only nonprofits in the area that, risk our life going out to save the public, and, the cost of the equipment and the gear to do it. An engine, you're looking at $350,000, $400,000. There's church groups and that out there, but, they don't need, they don't, what's a set of gear to
About $2,000.
$2,000 per set of gear for a man. The cost to keep that place going on us is outrageous.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, you're a nonprofit, but you're like a different level, so to speak, because you do all of that
service
stuff.
provider.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder to get membership, recruitment, and retention
Is
due
this
to the
Charles
fact that
you're
when you
speaking?
join.
What's that?
Is it Charles that's speaking?
Joe is speaking right now.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out who's actually the fireman that's speaking right now.
Yeah, he's kind of far away, so I don't know if you can hear too well, but
Okay. Because, we definitely can't we can never put a cost to someone's life, because they do put their lives on the line. So there's no issue with that. We just gotta figure out where, like you said, we're not gonna have everybody else, but hopefully they can understand the difference. But I think you're always gonna have those people coming back at us. So we just gotta figure something out. So we don't have to deal with that. But
Maybe Tim can
they
come
do
up
put
with
the life on the line, and that's nothing you can ever put a cost on or a dollar sign on.
yeah.
So we just
Tim, maybe if you could put something together for council to see what we could come up with for next week.
No, we have 2 options here then. We could exonerate them for a year, or we could grant them tax exempt status on their property. Is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, so the 2 options are either one, you give them a letter of support to go with the tax exemption proceedings through the county tax assessment board. And then that would be, if they're successful at that level, then they would always be exempt moving in the future for that particular property from state, or not city, county, and school district taxes. The other alternative is on a yearly basis, you as council would need to to approve an exoneration or an abatement of their city taxes for that particular year. And once again, it would only be city taxes, and it would only be for that particular year, and council would have to do that every single year.
And they'd basically have to, if we went that route, they'd have to ask the same thing of the school district too, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly it, yeah.
Well, if we exonerated them for a year and the school district doesn't, that still would be a $5,000 savings for them.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
even in the meantime,
A
while
question,
you're.
and this is more for him. I'm just, could they exonerate for a year to help us out this year until we have the hearing?
I was just gonna say that,
And
yeah.
still give us a letter to take up to the courthouse for that hearing?
Tim? Is
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could do that too. I mean,
Okay.
you could do both as well.
Because you don't know when you're gonna have the hearing at
Right.
this point.
It was,
Yeah, typically those hearings aren't until later this year, so, yeah, it would definitely be after the city and the county taxes when those come out. So, yeah, I mean, if council wanted to and was comfortable, we had, sufficient research done in place prior to, vote, you could then, exonerate and abate for this year, and then also issue them a letter to take with them for the tax exemption hearing itself.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else on this? Okay.
can I ask two other questions concerning fire department, the finances?
Yeah.
Okay, two, and I don't know if anybody has the answer or not, or if you can find it for us. One, is there a limit, an age limit on being allowed to drive the trucks? Of how old? Is there-
21, I believe.
No, is there a cutoff of how old? Is there a certain age that you're no longer?
I mean, like if you got cut off, you can't drive after you're 70?
Yeah,
That I could find out.
Like an upward age limit, like a maximum.
maximum,
Yeah.
yeah, is there a
Yeah,
maximum?
I'm not aware of any maximum.
I'm not
I mean,
aware
I
of
think,
any.
it just has to be anybody who's qualified and has their emergency vehicle operation certificates in place.
Blaine told me years ago that it was 72, I think. That was through the city's insurance policy. I don't know.
Well, we can find out.
Yeah, we have.
Prior to him dying, because he said he was gonna have to quit driving in a year.
Yeah, that we have to ask the insurance thing.
We can check with the insurance companies. but
It's
I'm not
just-
aware of any.
It's just been questioned, and we just didn't want there to be an incident, and, well, we're not covering it because he was old,
Yeah.
there's been discussion, and we wanted that, so.
It's a CDL license, right?
No, you don't need a CDL license to be a volunteer fire department driver.
Not to drive a fire truck.
Nope.
I think you just have to have your EV certification and your regular driver's license.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to have your
But anybody
VLOC,
that has those, I believe.
your regular license.
Is able to operate an emergency apparatus like that. I think there's an exception where you don't have to have a CDL license because it's an emergency vehicle, as long as you have that EV certificate in place.
We go one step further, 2 years ago, we require all drivers that have, we pay for them through the relief, but all drivers have to have a DOT physical and pass it. So we did that on
Okay,
our,
good,
so
good, that's real good.
that's something that we put in place.
Do you have an older individual that passes DOT, or you just want to know for future reference?
Just for future reference, just, make sure.
And was there another?
Yeah, the other thing, and it's, again, kind of with the insurance stuff, years ago, we used to know what we had in the way of coverage, like, if we got hurt on a fire with workman's comp and that, how is that paid now? If we get hurt, is that paid, do we get paid time off just like, is it with a city employee?
It's workman's compensation, that's exactly correct.
Is it passed according to what we make at our respective jobs? or-
That I couldn't tell you, we'd have to talk to the insurance agent.
I know years ago, we used to get an actual printout of, this is what was covered, and this is what you
When you
got.
say
So,
years ago, how long ago was this?
How does that feel? I remember Skirby used to bring them up.
Oh, that's when it was that RFP had the insurance.
Yeah.
And everything.
It was just,
We can find out for you.
Yeah, that's another insurance question.
Yeah, that's all I have.
It's injured on a fire call.
Well, yeah, when you get the call, when the mirrors go off, or in this case, most of us, it's our phones, we become a city, covered by the city insurance. That's on the way of the call up to the station, and that's until basically we're done with the call.
Okay. We'll find out.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving down the correspondence, the 2019 Monessen City Audit Completion Plan. The PA Department of Community and Economic Development has unflagged the city, and the completed audit is scheduled for April 30th, 2021. So I don't know, John, do you have anything to add to that? Or?
No.
Okay.
We're clear.
Okay.
I
And
guess I have a question on that.
yep.
Once that audit's completed for
2019.
2019, they're going to do
2020.
2020, yeah.
And that'll be completed by the end of July.
And then, moving on to the next one, Community Bank has donated the building at 575 Donner Avenue to the city, and the closing took place on Friday, January 29th, 2021, so everything's been signed. And we're expecting they still have some IT stuff to take out, so once that's all done, they'll be in touch with John to finalize everything. I believe you started transferring the utilities over as well, so. That's all on that. And then moving down to items for discussion, we'll have the second reading of Ordinance 1231, an ordinance of the City of Monessen, Westmoreland County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, reestablishing a blighted property review board by and for the City of Monessen, reestablishing a purpose, reestablishing rules and regulations governing the board, providing definitions, providing procedures for the determination, acquisition, and reuse of blighted property, establishing an appeal process, establishing additional board functions, repealing Ordinance 5 of 2008, repealing Ordinance 7 of 1978, and providing for an effective date. Did you guys get a chance to look at this more closely, and did anyone have any questions related to it?
Matt, the only question I have, and I read through some of it, was there was some references to the redevelopment authority.
Yes.
Has this been, and I don't know this answer, has this been discussed with them, or they know what the city wants to do and on board with it? And what effects it might have on them?
It has not been, and this is required by urban redevelopment law, so it's really up to us and not up to them.
Okay, but don't you think it's a good idea to bring them into the fold if
I mean, they will have a representative, as you can see, on this board.
Can you send them a copy?
I can send them a copy of it,
And
but
send
I
them a
mean,
copy of it so they can read it, so they're aware of what we're
it
doing.
basically determines how they acquire property through, like, it being deemed blighted. Is that correct, Tim? Am I right
Yeah,
on that?
so, and you already have a similar ordinance. Actually, the city's already had two past ordinances that are very similar on this. And so the redevelopment authority, all redevelopment authorities across the entire state, were created under the urban redevelopment law. And as part of that law, it also creates, the law requires the municipality that the redevelopment authority was created in to have procedures in place for what constitutes an urban renewal or urban redevelopment project. And so this ordinance is an attempt to update those to comply with that statute. So I don't think there's a problem at all with sharing a copy of it with the redevelopment authority. Certainly they can review it. There's not actually a whole lot that we really complete because it actually tracks word for word with the statute, the urban redevelopment law, for the most part. So, there's really very little discretion that the council would have to change aspects of that ordinance because it does track with the law. But I mean, certainly, there's no problem at all with sharing that with the redevelopment authority and letting them know that the city will be updating its ordinance and it's always a good reminder anyway, just in working with a lot of municipalities, I think sometimes redevelopment authorities forget, that there is this law that technically is supposed to determine what sorts of projects they have the authority for, and if they are going to exercise that authority, how they need to go about doing it, and make sure that it's being done the right way, and it's a proper exercise of that authority. So I think it's a good reminder for everybody, that this law is out there, and that's what we need to follow for any sort of projects.
Matt?
Yep.
This is Gil. On page 2, under section 3, creation members, duties, terms, and expenditures, it states there that in point A, it says duties of the board shall be responsible for the certification of the Monessen Redevelopment Authority of all properties deemed to be vacant or abandoned. They're getting hooked into it legally anyway, part of the responsibility of the board once the board is created, And the other thing is, to my knowledge, no one has even brought up anything about forming this board. And you go on, it says a member of city council should be on that board. One representative of the Monessen Redevelopment Authority shall be here on that board, and one representative of the Monessen Planning Commission shall be on that board, and one representative of the executive branch of the city government, and 3 at-large citizens representatives of the city of Monessen.
Yes.
So this is kind of, when you read on through this thing, it gives you some guidelines as to what we need to be doing as city council.
It pulls everyone together.
Pardon me?
I said it pulls everyone together.
Yes, exactly. So I think, I don't know, have we, to my knowledge, we haven't even started to get to selecting memberships, have we?
Well, no, because we'd have to adopt the ordinance first.
Well, I mean after,
Yeah.
but I mean there's any plans if anybody has any, because
Right.
this is very important.
Well, so council amongst ourselves, we would elect a member from city council to it. And then the redevelopment authority amongst themselves could say, okay, I want so-and-so to be the representative, and then they could submit a letter to us and we approve that. And same thing for the planning commission, and same thing for the executive branch of city government, which would be either me, John, or Cheryl.
Right.
And then for the 3 at-large citizen members, we can advertise and do what we do for any other board.
These 4-year terms will be all running at the same time? Or are you going
I
to do
thought
that?
they were staggered. 4 years.
I don't see anything that says anything about that, Pat.
Should they be staggered, Tim?
Do they need to be?
Do they need to be staggered, the terms?
They should be staggered. I'm thinking that if it's not in here, it's in the statute that requires for them to be staggered. But we would want it in there where it does indicate that they're staggered, and which ones are staggered when, because there's 7 folks, and each is for a term of 4 years. So you're gonna need to figure out which ones start when, and very early on, and some of them are gonna have to be shorter term appointments.
Right.
So keep that in mind as well.
What would be the stagnation times?
So the very first one, you're gonna need to pick. Essentially, what I'd recommend is you pick 2 people for a 1-year term, 2 people for a 2-year term, 2 people for a 3-year term, and 1 person for a 4-year term. And that starts your staggering right there. You have to associate it, 1 for each of those, whichever one you're gonna have fill each one of those spots.
So
1 from the city and council, 1 from the redevelopment authority, 1 from the planning commission, and then 1 from the executive branch. Which of those, once you start on which staggered term, is something that you as council will need to figure out.
So say that again. It was 2 for 1 year.
2 for 1 year,
2,
2 for 2
2, 1.
years, 2 for 3 years, and 1 for 4 years.
Okay.
And that'll get you on full rotation, where then thereafter everybody will have a full 4-year appointment.
Right.
But it will continue on a staggered basis.
That makes sense. Any other questions on this? Next, we have item B, the Equalization Tank Project Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement between the City of Monessen and the Mon Valley Sewage Authority. This is obviously for the tank that we've been discussing for so many years, which is proposed to go at the bottom of Oak and Perenni by the City Garage salt shed. Tim, do you want to talk about this since you've been dealing with this for a while now?
Yeah, so to give council a sense, you've got in front of you in your packets, I believe, a copy of it's a red line agreement. So we've started the process of preparing the agreement on the city's end and then providing it to both the authority and their representatives, and then also the bond council that will be serving the city and the authority for the financing for this project for comment. So you'll see throughout that document some of those comments as red line changes. This project, you may recall, we had some meetings earlier, well, last year at this point, about this project. DEP is, I don't say breathing down the city's throat, but they're really pressuring the city to address some overflow issues that have presented themselves and have been an issue apparently for some time. And this is one way that the city can address that, to complete this equalization tank project, which essentially holds as a larger holding tank, and the volumes that it holds will vary during different periods of time when there are larger storm events and more water and more volume than two actually hold without discharging out into, our nature and the actual streams and rivers and whatnot. So that's what the intent of the project is. The city obviously isn't in a position, financially speaking, to take on the debt obligation for this particular project. So the approach would be for the authority to take that on behalf of the city, and then as a means of paying that off, the city then would commit a portion of its line usage funds for right now until it was paid off to be put towards this project. So that's what the purpose of this agreement is to go ahead and authorize that agreement between the authority and the city so this project can get underway. We addressed some of the concerns the council had raised previously when we had our meeting. That was earlier last year, once again, and like I said, this is the final product with everybody's comments integrated to the extent that we were able to integrate and include those comments. Obviously, we don't get everything that we want out of the agreement. There are some things that I would have preferred to be changed, but whether it's a condition of the financing or something that the authority needs in order for the project to keep moving forward, those changes are reflected in that agreement. So I just wanted everybody to have that, because the authority, given the timing and the proposed time frame for the project, the authority is asking the city to go ahead and move forward with approving, and they'd like for us to approve the upcoming meeting.
Got it. And I know this is pretty long too, so I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at it in depth. But obviously, if you have any questions now or in the coming week, you could reach out to Tim, because I'm sure he's intimately aware or involved in this, so I'm sure he'd be able to answer any of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. I actually prepared the initial draft of the agreement that was then circulated.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. If anybody has any questions with any of the initial language or any of the subsequent revisions that were requested by any of the other parties, I'm more than happy to address that for anybody.
Thanks. Yeah.
Ms. Gill, this is for Tim. Tim, all of what has been talked about and said here, are the people in Donora in agreement with, is there any problem with these people over there?
We haven't been aware of any concerns or any problems or issues. Every indication, and John, feel free to jump in as well. when we had our last meeting just between some of the representatives in the city, there was no indication at all that there was any sort of disagreements or any objection. And disagreement itself would be with the authority. So the authority board, and I understand it's got Monessen representatives and it has Denora representatives who both would have the ability to vote on that board. But as far as I'm aware, we have not received any sort of objections or pushback. And my understanding, and once again, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is some precedent there for the authority to do projects that are geared more towards Monessen or more towards Denora, and that has happened in the past, and there's been approved for that. So, the authority, I think, it's got a responsibility to help both communities where it can and where it needs to, and this would certainly be something where it's authorized and able to help Monessen as one of its constituent municipalities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my reason for asking, I just wanted to feel good about, going forward with this project and no hang-ups, Don't want to deal with that. So as long as they're in agreement with it, I'm fine with it,
Thanks. Next up is item C, a discussion for a proposed tax relief ordinance for active firefighters. The fire departments approached me about this and asked if we would discuss it. It's my understanding that other municipalities have similar ordinances where basically, like, if you put forward like so many hours or other training or what have you, you could get like a tax relief on, I guess it would be city taxes of up to a certain amount. Tim, you said that you have some other municipalities that do something like this?
Yeah, so this is pretty fresh in terms of new legislation or new ordinances that the city can adopt to assist their volunteer firefighters. And the reason I say that is because the legislation that approved this just came out a couple of years ago. And there have been some municipalities, including some of the ones that I work with, that have passed legislation that provides these credits for volunteer firefighters. And there's some different ways that they have created their ordinances where, in order to qualify, there are certain types of training modules that have to be completed. There are certain requirements for the number of calls you have to respond to, things like that. So there are ways of tweaking that, but also you're going to want to consider whether you want the ordinance to, there's two options under the state statute. You can either give volunteer firefighters a credit on their real estate taxes up to a portion, or you can give them a credit up to a certain maximum amount on their earned income taxes. So it's one or the other, and typically there's a certification process, like I said, for specific criteria that have to be met in order for firefighters to be eligible for the credits that then the chief of that fire department would have to certify. But once again, I mean, there are options out there, and it's intended to be an incentive or to create an incentive for our volunteer firefighters to be able to continue to recruit and get people interested and excited and committed to volunteer firefighting. Obviously, the city recognizes the significant savings in having volunteer firefighters instead of a paid fire department. And, in order to continue to realize those savings and support volunteer firefighting, some communities have adopted, an ordinance that actually provides for these credits. So, once again, you'll want to consider exactly what kind of path and what kind of approach you want to take with it with respect to real estate credits or earned income tax credits, and then what kind of criteria for eligibility purposes you would want each firefighter to actually be certified for.
Does anyone have any questions or ideas or anything? Input? Do you all, do you think something like this is a good idea, just in general?
I think it's a good idea. My only concern is making sure that you do have a certain level that they're involved in the actual training and responding on calls. I wouldn't want to see us get in a situation where you have a 65-year-old guy. He doesn't go on calls anymore. But, you know, he's a volunteer fireman still. And then he gets credit
Right.
when when it's not deserved.
Yeah, we would have to make sure that we keep that in check and make sure that whoever does the work and deserves the credit actually gets the
Well,
credit.
what you might want to do is actually develop some kind of spreadsheet, form, where these people are required to sign off on, like, they go to a fire school. At Hilltop, you go to fire school, if you want to get credit for it, you have to sign your name to the roster list.
Yeah, like a log or something.
It's a log. So, when you go on a fire call, you have to sign.
Yeah.
Now, that, you would have to get the chiefs of the company to get that all coordinated
Right.
and get it into the city. I could see that being a lot of work for them.
I mean, they approached me about this, so, I mean,
Who approached you?
Mike did. Mike.
Kastner?
Yeah.
What would be the amount that the credit that they would receive if I'm following this the right way, you know?
Well, that's something that,
Actually, what would it amount to?
that's something that we would have to set. I don't know if there's like an average.
There is, that's a good question, and there is, I forget offhand, I think it's provided under the statute what the
Okay.
maximum credit is, and I think it's like 20% of what somebody's real estate taxes would be, or 20% of their earned income tax up to some certain maximum amount. There's some guidance in the statute itself, though, that sets forth some maximums. But you know, you guys would have the ability, obviously, to do anything up to that maximum. And just like Councilman Greger said, you know, the concern is you want to make sure that, because it does result in an expense to the city. You know, the city's going to get less taxes if it approves it. So it's not like it's a, you know, it's not a revenue neutral approach, but yeah, if it's actually tailored and it's done in such a way where it does really encourage firefighters to become, you know, more effective and to grow and to expand their numbers in positive ways, not just for people that maybe are not as active, then it can definitely, you know, be a good thing. But the key is, you know, actually structuring it in such a way where it accomplishes that goal.
Right. Anything else on this?
I have another question or thought. Depending on how you structured this, say if you went with a homeowner's deduction, what about the firefighters that rent?
Yeah, that's true.
Is it a way you can structure?
Yeah, that's typically why I think a lot of the municipalities will do as an either or, where it's an either or. You can take either the real estate exemption or the real estate credit or the earned income tax credit, because that's exactly right. I mean, some folks aren't going to be, you know, owners where they're paying a real estate tax bill. They would have to then, you know, in order to benefit, have a credit against their earned income tax. So a lot of them will do it where it's either or, but it's not both.
Either or.
So, I mean, if you all want to talk about it some more, and maybe we could put a draft together and just see if it's something that we want to do, we could do that. If you have any ideas for like a rubric, or depending on what the state law says, of course.
Yeah, if we can help them, you know, put it together where it would be feasible
Yeah.
for them, you know, who would actually keep the records and, you know, the sign in, the sign off or whatever, you know, so it would be accurate. So the state and the department get credit because we're back to where these firefighters are doing something for us and for the city.
Right.
You know, and I think we ought to try to do our best to help them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move down to item D, a discussion for a local economic revitalization tax assistance program, LERTA. We did one of these in the 80s, and we haven't done one since. Something like this, if, I believe you create a district, basically. So something like this could, let's say we use downtown to help rejuvenate and draw in businesses and obviously revitalize some of these vacant buildings we have down here. This could be something that could help. And I think things like this are usually structured where, like, if someone buys a vacant building, maybe the first year there's no taxes, and then the next year there's 25% and then 50%, something like that. I don't know, am I saying that right, Tim? Is that
Yeah,
the gist of it?
so actually, we can pull this into the discussion for the next item on the agenda as well.
Right, yeah.
Which is tax exemption and mixed use incentive programs. So in Pennsylvania, keep in mind, just generally, in order to provide some sort of a tax abatement for development purposes, there needs to be a state statute that authorizes the municipality to do that. We do have multiple statutes here in Pennsylvania that provide municipalities with the authority to do tax abatement programs. So, in other words, if there's a developer that comes in, and it doesn't even have to be a developer, I mean, it could be the owner of the property, but there's programs that are permitted to be in place for residential development, for industrial and commercial development, and then mixed-use development. Obviously, mixed use being the most recent. That legislation just recently passed within the last few years. But what it requires is for the city to have a program, whether it's LERTA or mixed use or IDRP-ATA, which is the residential one. You have to go through the process of through multiple hearings and using the factual data that's required of the statute. You have to go through and either select and identify particular properties that you want to be dilapidated properties. I believe is the specific terminology in the statutes, or deteriorated areas, which are districts. Just like Matt, you're talking about those districts, you can set an area that qualifies using the criteria in the statute as a deteriorated district, and therefore anybody within that district that increases and does work on a property, and there's thresholds that things you can require in order for it to qualify, but anybody that qualifies based on their development and improving the actual condition of that property would then have a tax abatement for additional taxes that would be accrued on that property. So for example, this is a really important concept to keep in mind. So right now, if there's a dilapidated vacant structure that nobody's using and it's in disrepair, and currently the taxes on it right now are $1,000 per year. If somebody comes in and develops that property, and then the taxes on the property would become $2,000, so they would double, the person would still be paying the first $1,000. They don't get abated what the current taxes are. So there's not an immediate loss in tax revenue. The only, so to speak, loss is the loss of what revenue you would have collected in addition to what's currently being collected. And so then the city would abate all or a portion of that additional taxes associated as a result of the development. The city would be abating that and basically would be foregoing that for some period of time. There's different schedules that would apply under all of those statutes. Sometimes it's 5 years, the maximum is 10 years, but that would be something for the city to consider which one they would think is appropriate. Keep in mind, so that obviously the purpose of the LERTA program and mixed use in the IDRPAT program is to incentivize and encourage development and for people to actually come and invest in developed properties, knowing that they're going to get and save a little bit on their taxes on a yearly basis for at least some period of time after they've already committed and developed that property. Really important is, once again, they don't get the abatement just from buying the property. They get the abatement after they've bought the property, they've submitted an application for LERTA, they've completed the developments, and then the tax value of the property will increase and therefore raise the taxes. That's to be in place before somebody can just start, taking advantage of a tax abatement or tax exemption.
The other thing to keep in mind too, the more successful LRTA or IDRPATE or the mixed-use programs across the state are ones where it's not just the city's taxes, but also the city's taxes, the county's taxes, and the school district's taxes. So I would typically recommend if you're looking and interested in a program like this, that you pull the county and the school district into that discussion as well, to determine, whether they would be on board with also approving exemptions that are consistent with the city's exemptions as well. My reading of the statutes is that they're not required in order for you to move forward with a program like this, but it's very difficult and can be a challenge if you don't have everybody on board, because then you've got multiple exemption values or multiple assessment values that you're working off of for different tax purposes. So, maybe a lower assessment value for city taxes because the city has a LRTA program in place, but it's a higher assessed value for county and school district taxes if the county and school district haven't approved, the program as well. So that can get confusing for people, and that's why I say, typically the more successful programs and the easier ones to operate and administer are ones where the school district and the county, all three of the taxing bodies, are all on board.
Does anyone have any questions about that? I think that was a really good explanation, much better than I could do.
Well, that's fine. Like I said, happy to answer any more questions. I have several municipalities that have these programs as well, and in some cases they've been more successful than others, but some developers will claim that this is what was a primary reason and one of the reasons why they went forward on moving with the development. Now, whether that is or isn't the case, there's always speculation with respect to that. There aren't many residential abatement programs throughout the state. Typically, you see a lot more commercial and industrial. So, that may be something that's interesting for Monessen in particular, because there is some good, useful housing stock that may, that's underutilized right now and is in pretty bad shape. But that needs further development with some of those properties in particular. But like I said, that's for you guys to really think through and figure out whether or not you want to commit to something like that.
I think something like this would be good, because if you have a property that's vacant, and like you said, let's say it's worth $1,000 in taxes, if we don't do a program like this and we're not incentivizing development, then that increased tax revenue that would come a few years later after the program expires or goes along its course, we would never see that money anyway. Because if the property is never redeveloped or repaired or anything, we would miss out on that money in the first place. If that makes sense.
Hey, Tim, this is John. Question, you take the property that we just transferred. Usually the properties are blighted and a developer's going to come in. Before you get the LRTA, you got to get the ownership of the property, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So,
and then some
LRTA only applies in situations where the owner or the person that actually is making the improvements to the property owns the property.
Right.
And so, you'll recall several months ago, I forget exactly when it was at this point, you guys as council had approved some developers agreements.
Right.
Those in some ways function similarly to LRTA, although once again, those ones only dealt with delinquent taxes. Those can deal with any future, prospective taxes at all. Whereas LRTA is more of a prospective, it's looking forward to future taxes. That's what the specific remedy that the LRTA program would provide. The developer agreements were specific to properties because they had delinquent taxes. So the delinquent taxes were a major obstacle to development. And so that's why those developer agreements were the specific tool to try and address those concerns. But LRTA just generally would be prospective for future taxes, and that's exactly right, John. In order to qualify, somebody would have to actually own and acquire the property. But also, in addition to that,
keep in mind, so council, in order for it to be eligible, it also has to be in one of those districts the council has done its due diligence and held public hearings on to determine that district as being a deteriorated district or that structure to be in particular a dilapidated structure.
I think what John was kind of getting at too is in kind of this could be a problem if we went through and did a LERTA program, but it's also a problem now where we have people interested in properties that are tax delinquent, but they're not able to acquire them because in some cases, like the one on Schoonmaker, the owners are like nowhere to be found.
Yeah, and so, I mean, if that's the specific concern, LERTA is not going to help you, unfortunately, with that issue because you still have the acquisition problem. And the delinquent taxes still present oftentimes an obstacle to acquisition. So LERTA, once again, is purely a prospective program that enables people to get exemptions and abatements on future taxes after the property is developed. It does not have anything to do with any delinquent taxes or prior taxes that are owed. And that's why we use those developers agreements that were specifically to address those targeted properties before that were blighted, and because that was the only tool available really to abate the taxes for delinquent taxes, past taxes.
Hey, Tim, on these two developers that we had, one is great. It's already passed and everything's working out well. The other one, we can't find a person.
The
You
the
mean
current
owner?
owner.
Can't find the owner?
The
Right,
current owner.
The
yeah.
current owner.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like 50
Unfortunately,
we have 15
unfortunately,
phone
we run into
numbers.
that a lot. That's the problem. Is
Yeah.
tracking those
Now,
owners.
Tim, this
Sometimes-
LERTA,
sometimes
is it any number of years, or is it specified as to the number of years?
you as council would have the ability to specify that. So
Okay.
there are several schedules that are provided as options under the statutes that you could approve the exemption for a certain number of years. Typically it's 5 years in a lot of cases, and the maximum is 10 years. So you guys would have to evaluate which of those schedules you thought was most appropriate. Sometimes I think one of the more common schedules is it's all the taxes that would have been increased on the property for 5 years. The 10-year schedule, I think it starts out the first year and it's 100%, the next year it's 90%, the next year it's 80%, so it's declining over time. And so that last year, it's only a 10% break on what the taxes would have been. But that would be the options for the abatement schedules and a time frame for when people would have get a tax break for development.
And Tim, how I expected I would use this is, we have a developer who develops the building he's currently in, and we use this so he could save the money, and he wants another building in the same area. The tax reduction would help him to buy the second building and then rehab that building, and then we have a developer who's really invested in our city.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, certainly it is a help for people that are committed to actually developing properties, and you want to make sure they're developing them in the right way. But for those folks, it does represent a pretty nice tax savings moving forward. That they would then have some funding available to turn around into other city properties. So, that is one of the incentives under a program like this.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So that ties in items D and E. E was discussion on tax exemption and mixed-use incentive programs, so those kind of go hand in hand. So moving down to item F, discussion on joining the Westmoreland County Land Bank. I've had conversations via email with Brian Lawrence, who's the new executive director there. He used to be in the county planning department, to try to get some information on the land bank and what some pros and cons of it might be for the city. There is a $5,000 fee to join, but that is a one-time fee, and obviously if we do this, we'd want to make sure we wait until we start getting revenue in again. But what we would need to do is, we would need to get, if we approve joining it, we'd also need to get the school district to approve joining it. And I think one of the benefits for us doing it that other municipalities in the county don't have, Monessen has a lot of vacant houses. And one of the initial concerns was that if we joined the land bank, it would take away from CDBG funding that we get, and that is not the case. But we would have to coordinate with the land bank to make sure that any of their projects don't coincide with any of ours. So like, for example, if the city is planning to tear down a house, we want to make sure that the land bank isn't planning to acquire the house. And, I don't know if Tim, again, if you have anything to add on the land bank, and I don't know if you have any municipalities that are in the county land bank.
Yeah,
if
I
you could speak to
do
it.
work with some municipalities that are part of the county land bank, and I mean, it's a good program. If you can get them to commit to some projects in your municipality, it's a good program. There's some great folks that work there, and they really do have, some very community-minded projects and want to help communities out. You want to make sure they do a project, though, in your municipalities. Not all municipalities have kind of qualifying good projects. So I think that's something you want to look at. But keep in mind, the land bank has some powers that your municipality doesn't have.
I was just going to ask about that.
Regarding acquiring certain properties, in particular tax delinquent properties. So going back to the tax delinquency issue and that being an issue with other properties in the city, that may be one route that is particularly helpful because a land bank has certain powers and certain priorities and preferences with respect to tax delinquent properties. The other thing too, the legislation just changed probably in the last 3 years, last 4 years even, where now redevelopment authorities have certain land bank powers as well. The only problem is it's limited to land bank or redevelopment authorities in communities that have more than 10,000 residents. So our redevelopment authority on its own would not have the same powers that a land bank would have, unfortunately. So that's why using and joining the county's land bank would open up some additional authority to be used in the city for acquiring what are some otherwise tax delinquent and or blighted properties.
Do they can they do anything with estates as well?
Yeah, so they have the ability to go in and acquire properties where people are deceased.
Because we have that problem
interestingly
too.
enough, under the statute for states, your redevelopment authority actually has the ability to serve as the executor. They're actually on the list of priorities for people to serve as executors in order to process and handle estates for property owners who are deceased. The only problem is it's really not realistic for a redevelopment authority to go in and really generally on any kind of a widespread basis serve in that capacity because it is fairly complex and there is some liability exposure with handling and administering an estate like that. But land banks also have the ability as part of their acquisition process and the authorities and powers of a land bank to acquire properties where the owner may be deceased and no action has been taken with respect to that person's estate.
Hey, Tim, this is John again. On the Westmoreland Land Bank, for instance, if we have 10 properties and they're all deceased, we, as a city, we can't go in and take anything unless we go through the courts. So are you saying Westmoreland Land Bank can do that without going through the courts?
Yeah, I mean, they've got more authority to acquire tax or blighted properties like that, especially when the owners are deceased. They've got more authority with respect to that than the city itself does.
Okay, so then,
We have several houses.
Yeah, I'm sure
that
the
people are interested.
It's really the only city option. The only realistic option the city has is either somebody probate the estate or the heirs sign the property over to the city, which requires you to track all those people down and for them to step up to the plate, so to speak.
Right.
Or your other option is the city uses its eminent domain powers to condemn and acquire those properties, but, you know, keep in mind, your eminent domain powers are limited, and can only be used for a public purpose. So it's not property that you can then turn around to a private developer in, you know, 99% of all cases. So you're limited there, and two, it's also, you know, tends to be a very expensive process to use the eminent domain process. So, you know, that's why a land bank that has more expansive powers for acquisition is oftentimes kind of a nice tool to have when the city itself, you know, can't address a property on its own.
I guess we would probably find out once we go to them, if we had 10 properties and we wanted them and we needed a space and these houses were beyond repair. Then we end up with CDBG money and liens against the properties. Or do they use other monies?
You mean the land bank?
Yeah, for the land bank.
The land bank is not going to use your CDBG money for land bank projects.
Okay.
And that $5 buy-in fee that you have there,
$5,000.
you know, that's proposed, yeah, and that's typically, you know, seed money, so to speak, for the land bank to start moving on different projects.
Okay.
And then once they complete a project, you know, so typically what the land bank likes to do is they like to acquire a blighted property, and then remediate that. So, you know, they're able to turn around and sell it to a developer, or develop themselves and then sell it. And then the money from that sale goes back into the land bank pool, so to speak, to be used for other future projects in other municipalities as well. So the land bank itself is not going to touch your CDBG money from the city as an entitlement community. They're going to have their own separate source of funds. So, you know, you're not going to have to put CDBG liens or you know, commit CDBG funds to a land bank project.
Yeah, I understand about CDBG, but $5,000 from each of the communities, not a lot of money.
No, it really.
I may not be around to see any of that.
That's why they have to rely on actually completing projects and then, you know, getting property and projects into developable shape, so then they can continue to, you know, turn around and you know, do work on the tax, or do work to actually generate additional funds from the sale of property.
I think we have, what, 65 communities, 67 in the county. That's about $300,000.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money.
No.
And that's a one-time only $5,000.
Yeah.
So.
So basically what they have to do is they have to develop or redevelop these homes, refurb them, sell them, and then that goes back into their account, and that's how they start financing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless, I mean,
that's a process.
Unless they have other sources of funds as well. I don't know.
That's the other thing you never know about the county. They don't tell you about the other sources. Because when we get our Eisenberg's building done, we were working on 2 houses on their HUD money, and all of a sudden, we wanted $600,000. They went in and got $1.2 million. Then we put that into the building, and another $500,000 from MVI. And then another $600,000 came from the county. We don't ask any questions. We just happy to get the money. But there was $1.8 million. We had no idea where that money came from. So that's the only thing I think of that would be a benefit in the land bank, is if they had money that nobody knows about. Because $300,000 is just not going to go far.
And I mean, like, in regards to opening estates, for example, like, I know of 2 houses off the top of my head that the owners are deceased, the next of kin wants nothing to do with them, the houses aren't terrible, and we're stuck because we can't do anything, but there are people interested in them, and they're just kind of in limbo. So, you know, a lot of the problem here is that the owners can't be found, the owners are dead, the kids want nothing to do with them. So if they have the means to get these properties into people's hands, then I think it would be a good thing for us.
And that's why I would recommend, you know, right off out the gate, obviously all the documents and everything that the land bank has you sign to become a member.
Mm-hmm.
They
they refuse to commit to doing a project in your municipality. But I would think it would behoove, the city that if you guys are seriously considering that, you invite a representative from the land bank to come in and, kind of identify some properties and have the discussion about, okay, if we were to become members of the land bank and, this was one of the projects we wanted to tackle, what would the time frame be? How do you guys foresee? Is this a project you could tackle? How do you foresee doing it? Things like that, just to, kind of get a better sense of, in a very real, practical sense with a particular property to see what kind of vision they have for it and what they would propose for it. And that could even serve as the basis for one of the initial properties that they, may be able to help tackle in the city.
Yeah.
We got a perfect one right in the center of City Park.
Yeah, that's one of the
Beautiful
ones I was
two-story
thinking of.
brick home, in-ground pool, 3-car garage, weeds are growing about 4 feet high, and
Somebody mowed.
nobody available.
We don't know.
Somebody mowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody somewhere, I understand, mowed the weeds down. But perfect, if they found out how they could handle that, that would be great.
I mean, the house next door sold for $120,000. So just
This
last
would
year.
be at least 140 then.
Yeah. So they'd certainly make their money's worth on that one.
Okay.
All right. Next up, item G, discussion on the recreation board. So I don't know if Tony, you want to go first? If you have anything on this.
I don't have anything, not sure what you want me to say about what this is for deduction. I'll have their report, and that's about it.
Well, I thought that you wanted a discussion on it because, we were having some issues with the recreation board. So I'm just going to go down the list of issues that I have seen over the last week or two. The first being, and I will say, I don't think Tony or Lois, or I don't know if Gil has this either, because John added it this afternoon. We have the rec board meeting schedule for 2021. They would like us to put an ad in the paper for it, and it lists that the board will meet every third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. and it has each of the dates from February through December. And it says the board meetings will be conducted by Zoom, but we can't run the ad until we know how they are going to be taking public comment, since they are subject to the Sunshine Act.
Have they been running any ads at all?
No, that was my other point. They had a January meeting and there was no advertisement for their January meeting.
When was the last time they actually advertised for a meeting?
Well, they haven't met since COVID. I don't think I think maybe they met once or twice in 2020 before COVID. So I don't know if they advertised for 2020's meetings. But all board, when we did our Sunshine Act seminar, we learned that all boards, authorities, and commissions of the city are required to have public meetings that are advertised, and they are to allow public comment. So
Well, I thought that was Matt. I thought all boards. Everything.
You are correct. Yes, all boards, authorities, and commissions.
But what I'm saying is I thought, and this is the way it's been done in the past, that in January, when city council posts when city council is going to meet, they also posted any authority or board or anything else in that same advertisement.
I mean, they could do separate ads, but we can't, if we don't know when they're going to meet, we can't advertise it.
Well, you can advertise once for all the meetings?
Yes, yeah. Unless you have something outside of that regular meeting schedule. So they had this meeting in, I think it was the 25th, and it was not advertised. Also, I asked last March, I asked in November, and I asked again recently. I still do not have the child abuse clearances from the board members. I have them from the 2 new members. I do not have them from any of the volunteers or 3 of the other members. The board is still collecting money at the building, including cash, There's no way of us keeping track of whether all of that money is making it to City Hall or not. I'm not saying anyone is taking anything, but there is no checks and balances in that. The money should be handled the same way the park pavilions are handled, where the money comes to the treasurer's office where they are bonded, and we can provide a receipt to anyone.
Are we even aware, apparently they rent this building out, what, on an hourly basis?
I'm assuming you mean when they rent the gym?
Yeah, do they ever send anything to us?
No. No.
So how do we know?
And I was also made aware that last summer, there were 3 children that were injured in the gym, and we were never made aware of that. And this building belongs to the city. This is a liability for us. It will come back on us, not on the rec board.
Now, you had 3 kids, when you say injured,
One of them broke their leg, or their arm or something, a limb. They broke a limb. I don't know about the other 2, but I was told that 3 children were injured on the basket or on the gym floor. So
Wouldn't it have been during COVID?
that I don't know. I was told it was during the summer. I don't know. I wasn't given a specific date. I just know that 3 kids were somehow injured at some point last year. So we opened the gym back up in June after the first shutdown ended. So I'm assuming it was after that point.
well, if it was a summer, it would be in June.
Yeah, June, July, somewhere around there. So those are just some of the concerns. Again, this all comes back on us.
Matt,
Yes.
this is Gil. Are there any new people just been appointed to this board?
We just appointed Val and Rihanna to the board, and they are subject to clearances and whatnot. And I do have Val and Rihanna's clearances on file. Well, John has them on file. I have not received anyone else's.
Are the other ones required to do this?
It's my understanding that it's state law. If you have to have a clearance to like hand out food at a school cafeteria as a volunteer,
I'm looking at this, how do I determine which volunteers my age need clearances?
Yeah. I don't know, like, I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I would be concerned, and I'm not, again, not saying that any one of them are doing anything, but I would be concerned if I were sending my kid to a facility where people don't have the proper clearances. Not to mention, I've received numerous complaints over the last few months when the Civic Center was open that they sometimes have open gym or they rent the facilities out for parties or what have you. They will unlock the door and leave the building unattended. And so there's no one down there. So, and 2 of the parks guys have repeatedly said that things have been broken by the kids playing down there because no one is supervised. And again, it's a huge issue for us.
Are the 2 new board members aware of these things that we're talking about?
I believe some of them.
Well, when you say you haven't received clearances, does that mean that they've refused to do the clearances?
Yes.
Or
They've refused on multiple occasions. And it's my understanding from the former city clerk that when the Recreation Board was formed the first time in 2017, most of, and I don't believe all of, but most of the board members at that time did come down to the city and produce their clearances to be on file at City Hall. So this is not a new thing.
Tim, are they required to do this?
You mean required to have their child clearances?
Yes.
So as with anything in law, the answer is complicated. So the Child Protective Services law requires for any paid or unpaid persons or individuals, including volunteers that are dealing or have routine close contact with children, to have their child protection clearances on file with the organization that they're with when they're in close contact with children. So the very first question is, would any volunteer or any board member down there have any sort of close contact with children?
Yes, when basketball games are going on, or...
Yeah. So that's important because that's an example. So hypothetically, because every single board member, you could be a board member and hypothetically not be down there that often. So, would that board member have to provide clearance?
There was discussion. There was discussion there when things are going on.
Well, I'm looking at this Life is Beautiful volunteers thing here, and how do I determine which volunteers in my agency or organization needs clearance? Number 3, direct contact, consider if the adult volunteer provides care, supervision, guidance, or control of children. As the terms above are not defined in statute, we suggest that common meaning of these terms be used with child safety serving as a paramount consideration. If it is determined that the adult volunteer provides care, supervision, guidance, or control of a child or children, then they will require clearance. Well, if they're running the basketball program, aren't they providing care, guidance, or control?
Or at least supervision.
Or, well, hopefully they're supervision.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good example where if somebody is operating a basketball program for youth, and they're there actually at the games or at the facility while the games are going on, yeah, I would think that would fall under the statute that would require somebody to need to have their clearance on file. Once again, though, if it's a board member who's not ever at the facility, doesn't involve with any program for children at the facility, they might not. Now, keep in mind, you council several months ago approved a resolution that required for any new volunteers or new appointees to provide their clearances. So
Right.
this is only an issue for anybody that was previously appointed, and you know, once again, you can't require them to have it unless they're required by law to have it under the Child Protection Services law.
Well, I would assume that if they are going to fulfill their mission of having recreational opportunities for the kids.
It doesn't make any sense to me. You have 3 board members. Is it 3?
Yes.
That are refusing?
Yes.
How do they run the place if they're not there?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do they interact with
And like I
coaches
said,
or anybody else?
And like I said, I've had reports that the building is just open for whoever, whether it's the
You mean they
games.
just let people in?
Yeah.
And then they leave?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Matt, this is Gil Cole.
Yes.
Couple questions I got. Who are the 3 people left on the board, and who are the 2 people, I know 2 people that are new, but who did they replace?
Rihanna and Val replaced Amy Wade and Sheldon Davis.
Okay, and the 3 people that are left are who?
Ed Lee, who is the chairman, Brandy Smith, and Marlon Wheeler.
Okay, just for the record, I wanted that, clear,
Yeah.
for the future,
And how the building is left open, evidently they have a key under lock, and
With a
somebody gives
combination.
them the code, they open it up, take the key, and go in. Now, if they're not supervised. My other question is this: where are the insurances that they are supposed to put up for the leagues in order to protect us? I don't have any insurance on file.
And also, I just want
Well,
to
ask Tony if maybe he has.
Yeah, Tony, do you have insurance records? Do you know they're supposed to do this?
I don't have anything. I just got a text from somebody who once they answer your questions and wants to know if you'll pick up the phone and they'll answer them.
Can't pick up the phone, you guys are on.
You should be able to
Which
take phone
phone?
calls.
I mean,
That's
it's
why
like
we're meeting.
in the other room. It's not here.
Well,
So, and I'm sure we will be addressing this next week as well.
Well, we should at least give them a chance to respond, and maybe they can get us all this information. But someone said something about they brought on another volunteer. They just brought somebody on as a volunteer.
They did, Amy Wade as a volunteer, and she will have to provide her clearances because she
Okay,
falls under that
she's
new
required.
resolution.
She's required by our new ordinance.
Yes, the resolution.
I'll be honest with you, ethically and morally, I can't see why you wouldn't get your clearances.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And if
And
I
if
was
they have them, I mean, fine.
just, it's just that, I understand there may be a conflict between people are knuckleheads, and we always want to butt heads. But this is very simple. This is about the kids.
Yeah.
This isn't about what Dawn Greger thinks. or Matt Sherralla thinks, or what anyone else thinks. If I was a parent, I would be extremely concerned that if my kids were going somewhere and people refused to get these clearances. I just don't understand that.
Well, I'm here to defend myself and my board.
You think maybe, if somebody's trying to call, maybe they're trying to respond to some of these questions or things that you guys
Well,
are
Ed
bringing
Lee
up?
just
Ed-
showed
Ed
up so
just
he
came
can
in.
answer some of these.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who just came in?
Ed just came in.
Yeah, who?
Ed Lee.
Ed Lee.
Okay, I guess he doesn't have to call it.
Yep.
No, I'm here. So what was your question? Well, first of all, I heard some of this. The city crew has never told us of anybody breaking anything at the Civic Center, ever. So I want to know where these reports are coming from. How come it was never brought to the board? Secondly, nobody told us anything about somebody being injured at the Civic Center when it was closed. So how come that wasn't reported to the board?
No, this was when it was opened back up, apparently.
Okay. Nobody addressed anything about the board or that anybody was injured. So this is coming up now, when it should have been brought up then and not now.
Just want to find out about
Yeah, we just found out about it too.
Okay. And you're saying that you sent requests to the board for information in March and when?
I sent one in March.
To who?
I sent it to Amy, back in March.
Amy said she never received any communication from you.
Well, I sent it in March, so
Okay,
that's.
why did
he
you
said
send it
she
to Amy
sent
and
it.
not me?
Because I wasn't sure who the officers were at that time. And then I believe I sent one in November.
To who?
To you, I believe.
I
It
never
was either
received-
November or December.
I
But
never received
regardless,
anything
we
from
have
you.
requested the clearances multiple times.
Okay. First of all, the clearances for me, Marlon, and Brandy were already on file here at City Hall.
We don't have them.
Okay, then you need to speak, then you need to reach out to Judith Taylor, because she had all that information. But
And-
since you had already requested this, we've already sent in for our new request that we should have in about 7 to 10 days.
Good, because they do expire too, so.
Okay, mine wasn't due to expire until 2023. Okay, but to please the pleasure, or to please council, not just one person, we already sent in for our clearances. Marlon already has his because he works for kids.
Mhm.
So does Brandy. But we're going to resubmit for all new clearances just to please you. I think it's ridiculous that you're attacking the board that works very hard down there. Now, it ain't perfect by no means at all. But again, it's not perfect. You send your list of what you want done. We haven't pushed back on that. But you want to go on this tirade about the board and their so-called unethical practices is shameful on you. You have not had one conversation with anybody on the board. Not me, not Marlon, not Brandy, nobody. You want to attack us, that's fine. We're all up for it. Your right to know request isn't even actually a right to know request. We're not refusing it. We're just saying that because we're a city-controlled board, as you said, then that should go through Mr. Harhide.
Well, that would be great if we had that information.
Where's the
it.
right
That
to
would go
know?
through me. I only have right to know coming in,
Right.
For the
not
city.
going out.
But I understand it. But he should have submitted your right to know to you, and then you said, Ed, I have a right to know from the mayor about the financials and everything going on with the rec board.
That wouldn't go to me.
The boards of the city. For any municipality, other than a law enforcement municipality, that has multiple kind of constituent units, including any board or commission, the initial right to know request should be received by the open records officer, for the municipality, and then turned over to any specific board that would be, responsible for filling that request. So, yeah, any right to know requests for any city boards that are received or whatnot, first should be routed to, the open records officer, and then go to the specific board that it may be addressed to. Technically that's the right way of doing it.
So it should have gone to Mr. Harhide, and Mr. Harhide should have sent it to Mr. Lee.
I'd be more than happy to resend it.
Okay.
That's correct. Or, the other, in the way the statute, the right to know law is written, it's kind of confusing because the alternative is if anybody in the city from a city board would receive a right to know request before the open records officer would, that city board member is supposed to turn around and turn it over to the open records officer who then routes the request to officially who should be receiving it and responding to it. So it's kind of, in some ways, it's a two-way street. If somebody incorrectly receives a right to know request, they need to route it to the open records officer who then turns around and reroutes it to wherever it needs to go, or somebody submits it directly first to the open records officer who then routes it to where it needs to go.
So Matt should have given this to Mr. Harhide, who then should have given it to Mr. Lee.
That's the cleanest way of doing it under the right to know law.
And
sure that
since Matt did it incorrectly, Mr. Lee should have told Mr. Harhide that this is your, and then Mr. Harhide would look at it and give it to Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I mean, it would have just bounced back.
That's correct. That's correct. Either one of those routes.
But even the right to know that you sent me didn't even have the right to know form on it.
What do you mean?
You said there was an attached right to know request. There wasn't no request or attachment to the right to know.
Well, that could be that, because when I sent it, your email bounced back, so.
I'm not sure why, because I received
don't know
emails
why
all
either,
day.
but I will resend it to John and he could forward it to you.
Okay. And what I'd like to do, Matt, because again, we all care about the community. Some people claim they do, some claim they don't. But you know what? As I told you today in the driveway, I'm done fighting with people. It's not working. We're defeating ourselves by keep fighting back and forth for nothing. We're not two sides here. We should be one city as we all claim. But everybody wants to keep this divide going on, and we're getting nowhere. So again, I'm willing to extend an olive branch and sit down with you guys and work and try to work together through our differences. John, when I talked to you last week, what did I tell you? We don't agree on a lot of things, but we can have conversations. Was that not my words? But all this backstabbing and dirty play, it's got to stop. It's ridiculous. We become the clowning city of the valley because of this.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Ed. I agree with you. But on that same note, then all this Facebook stuff should cease.
Absolutely. I agree.
This denigrating someone, making these negative comments, making these...
But see, here's my thing, Don. I don't do it behind people's back.
Oh.
As most people here do.
You said some things about me on Facebook, and I really don't care because...
It's just words.
I just don't care.
It's just words, right. And I don't care either.
But
when
some of the things that are said could be taken in such a way that they are very insulting. And it has to stop. You have to stop it. Everyone has to stop this stupid stuff. You can't insult someone, then want to sit down and talk to them.
Oh, no, I agree. But again, this could be a brand new start here of trying to work together with everybody as one community.
It would be nice.
But, if you're not willing to do that, Matt, what's the point?
I'm willing to do that, but that goes both ways.
Okay, how many times have I tried to have conversations with you?
I agree.
And it's always, and you always want to take the adversarial role, and it's not the point. It gets us nowhere.
And again, to what Dawn said, it goes both ways.
Okay, but I said,
we've had conversations where
I said, I'm willing to put all that aside to work better for the city.
Because several months ago, we had that conversation where we're like, okay, we can have a conversation.
But then you snipe people behind their back.
And vice versa. So.
Well, you know what? Don't push me, I don't push you.
And vice versa.
Okay. So at least we have an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But
like I said, it takes
any
two people to meet halfway.
Any day that you want to meet, I work from home. I'm home all day. Anytime you want to meet, we can all sit down, go over our differences. Hey, I'll even apologize for some of the things I've said. Or you want to do the same?
Yeah, but you also have you have some board members to apologize to who also feel very threatened.
Well, I don't know why anybody's so threatened. I speak my mind.
And maybe that's threatening to them.
Well, it shouldn't be.
So
it shouldn't
I mean, that's their
It shouldn't be.
opinion.
Matt,
so.
it shouldn't be. I should be able to say, I should be able to put my point across to anybody. You can either take it with a grain of salt or not take it at all.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, people could.
But when you
take
have
things
one
the
member
wrong
that came
way.
in on the first day and tried to run roughshod over the entire board, that's a problem.
I
They're not
was-
a board. This is not about individualism. This is about a board.
I was of the impression that that board member was asking questions and was received very negatively. So, and she felt very threatened.
So did Marlon and so did Brandy, felt that she was coming in there to bully the board.
Well,
and nobody was going to stand
If she's asking questions as to how things should be handled.
And they were answered.
And,
Were-
well,
They
she
they
was
were
told
answered.
to come to the city.
No, she was not. She said she was coming to the
Well,
city.
and she did,
Okay, and that's fine.
and her questions were answered.
Okay, the same
And then
questions I probably
she was
answered.
still lambasted via email. This is what I'm getting from
Okay.
her
All right,
and
well,
her
you know what,
views,
there's
so-
two sides of the story and the truth's in the middle.
Yeah, so, you know, people could take things the wrong way. It's hard to read tone in an email. You know, we've all been there, I'm sure, but
No, that's why I don't do email.
Well, here's the thing, you know, you let me know a date and time that you can sit down with all the board. It's not even gonna be a meeting, it's gonna be a meet and greet to discuss how the board can do better. Because did I not tell you, Don, today?
You did tell me that today.
That the board is not perfect. There's a lot of things we can do better. That is our attempt to do better. With the two new members, the first thing I said to them when I heard they were appointed, I said, welcome to the board, let's work together. And again, a lot of new ideas was put out there about the board, you know, what we can do. And it was all accepted welcomely. No, there was never any pushback. Okay, I think Rihanna has a lot of great ideas that we can do to help fund the Civic Center, because we know you guys don't give us any money. You know, so, you know, we're going to have to, you know, really rely on fundraising. You know, but as you always remind me, the Civic Center is a city-owned building. We need a new floor in the gym.
and I told you last summer to send that request to council or get some quotes or something.
Did you get any quotes then?
You know, with COVID, we're having a hard time finding somebody to do it. There was a place in Elizabeth, but they said, you know, they're really not doing much work.
Well, apparently, any idea approximately what it would cost?
Somewhere around $25,000 to do it right.
Well,
We'll probably
if
get
you're
it
gonna-
done for $10,000-15,000.
If you're gonna do it, don't do something,
Well,
can't say
I
that.
agree. I agree.
If you're gonna do it right. I mean, if you repair something and you do a temporary fix, that's exactly what it is.
Well, that's what the previous board did. They kind of did it half-assed.
Well, I didn't want to
And
use that phrase.
now, you know, we're worried about kids, like we had, I know what you're talking about, the injuries. The 3 injuries that happened during basketball, because the floor is so slick that the kids are turning their ankles and twisting their knees. That's the problem.
Well, then that's where the injuries came in. Also, too, my concern is talking to you today was that you didn't seem to have anything structured as far as, all right, this money came in, you should have had a financial journal here. Okay, I turned this into City Hall on January 1st, 2020. There's nothing like that.
Right, and
Where are
again,
your minutes at?
well, the minutes were sent. Now,
Who'd you give the minutes to?
well, the minutes that from last week
January.
were
No,
changed.
the minutes from last
The
year.
minutes we say, we were sent to Dave PM because he was over our department, and Judith. And then all of council was always copied on the minutes.
So do you have copies of these minutes?
I'll pull copies,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. So when he sends the right to know to him, and he sends it to you, you'll have all that
Right.
information.
Now, we only had 2 meetings last year because
That's
again,
what-
I
Well,
mean, we
COVID-19,
really
that's
didn't
understandable.
meet. But, you know, I'll pull together the 2019s. It's not a problem.
And when you have these Zoom meetings, how does the public?
Well, right now, I mean, you know, that could be amended, because right now we're only meeting by Zoom. I mean, if we're able to meet here at City Hall, because the quarters down at the Civic Center are tight. So we really can't safely social distance if we get people in there.
Well, that's what this building's for.
Okay? So, I mean, if council approves, we'll
I'll
have
be
our
honest
meetings
with you, I
here.
think all boards should meet here.
Well, I have no issue with that.
And I don't think we have any conflicts on, what was it, the second, third
Oh,
Wednesday?
you could always adjust that.
I mean, listen, we could be flexible. If we need to change our meeting dates, we can do that to make it work. Again, we're not we're not trying to fight with you guys. You know, we all want to coexist and do what's right for the city. You know, so if that means that, you know, hey, you know what, you guys can't meet on the third Wednesday of the month, this is the day that works for us to have our meetings here, then by all means, we'll go ahead and do it.
Question, Tim. Since they're a board, who represents them legally? That would be the city, correct?
It technically would be the city that would provide them with representation in the event that there was a legal situation that arose.
Okay, that was just for my information.
But the other issue that the board is having, for the safety and security down at the Civic Center, you guys took our cameras out.
Yes, which the police did not have access to.
All you had to do was say, hey, can we get access?
Who had access to those cameras?
Just the board members, that was it.
I mean, could you call in and take a look to see what was going on?
Yeah. They were set up that when we have renters, because again, I mean, you know, let me tell you, the Civic Center has been run the same way it has been run for the last 30 years. Basically ran on an honor system. People call, pay, leave the money, bring it down here to City Hall. It's been that way since when I was a kid playing basketball down there. We would get pickup games in the middle, we'd go down there, we'd call, door would be open for us to go play basketball, we'd pay, and we'd leave.
My only concern with that kind of situation was the day of litigation.
But when we had cameras, it was, you know, it was more like, okay, yeah, we could see who's down there and be able to identify. If you asked Uhas about 2 years ago, he said, hey, there's somebody down here playing basketball at 1 o'clock in the morning. Nobody called anybody on the board to say, hey, can I rent a gym? And we're definitely not renting it after 11 o'clock. That is the cutoff. 11 o'clock, there's no more basketball. We go on camera, the guys are down there drinking, smoking weed, and Uhas goes right down there and chases them out the door. Now we don't have that eye because they're gone. And to me, that was a liability. That was certainly for liability, because when we came to council to approve the cameras, we had a person that tried to say that the city was negligent because her kid ran into the wall and hurt himself. But with the cameras, it shows that the kid was roughhousing with another kid and got pushed into the wall, which was not our fault. But that's what prompted us in 2019 to put the padding up on the wall so that kids don't go headfirst into concrete or cinder blocks. And has cut down on injuries remarkably. But now we don't have eyes down there, so we can't tell what's going on.
Kids go in there without adult supervision?
No, there's no.
No.
The only ones that rent are adults 18 and older.
18 and older.
Yeah. There's never any kids under 18 that can rent down there unless an adult is one staying there with them the entire time.
Okay, now, you're saying an 18-year-old could rent the basketball courts, and you can bring an underage kid?
No.
They all have to be 18
They all have
and
to
older?
be, and that has always been made clear.
I'm wondering, no, I don't know if you could even do that.
I mean, if you guys want to hire a part-time person to work down there to do rentals, hey, I'll be.
My question about the rentals is, when they rent something like a pavilion, you rent it out ahead of time, you reserve it, and there's a record of that in the city. Do you have records like that?
I have it on my calendar, John, do you still have that I sent you? I sent an email to the calendar today of the rental payments.
You said this?
No, he's talking about the
Give me a second.
rentals.
No, I didn't see anything.
Give me a second, I'll resend it. But for the month of January, on my calendar, I put the name of the person that's renting and what they're supposed to pay.
What he's asking for, if they're going to rent it on February 8th, we should pay the money on February 2nd or 3rd to reserve that time.
Okay, I mean, hey, That's fine. I mean, but we don't get advanced rentals unless it's like for a birthday party. 9 times out of 10, people were like, Demond Jordan is down there now from 9 to 11 with his group, and it's a regular group that plays down there every Monday night, 9 to 11. Now, there's sometimes they don't go down there and play at all, but he'll call and tell me, hey, by the way, we're not playing tonight because we didn't get enough people. Most of the people that go down and play basketball is last minute. Because right now,
I think it's business, and that's when you can't rent that time. The same time, you lose the rental. If you had it rented ahead of time, you would never use that rental. And
So
I
you
think
mean like if
that's-
someone backs out?
And you're tying them up to make sure they
well,
come.
here's the thing. I mean, when they tell me that they're not playing, it's not like I'm down here 9 o'clock, only got 2 people. We're not going to play. There's usually about a 2-hour window that they know they're not coming. So if somebody else calls and says, hey, is the gym open between 9 and 11 tonight? Yeah, it's open because we had a cancellation. But I mean, listen, we're willing to listen to any and all ideas.
Well, I definitely think that we need to sit down and square away some of this. Because
Absolutely.
I'll be honest with you, Ed, that last second stuff, that can, how do you keep track of everything?
Well, again,
I need
it
to
goes-
talk about your calendar now.
Well, because as soon as they book, it goes on the calendar.
You need to get that to the city ASAP.
Sure. I'll give you, because again, how do you want it? Do you want weekly rentals or you want daily notices?
No, I think.
Do you want
I know
or monthly?
I know the one email you sent to me was January 4th through 11th, and I received it on the 12th. And I've been asked every morning, I don't have the money yet,
Well, because here's the thing, because they're not coming down here. Whenever they rent, we're telling them, you have to go and make your payments to City Hall. Well, this is
You said something today where you said they didn't really like going down to
They
City
don't.
Hall.
What I'm getting from renters is that I don't want to go down to City Hall. It's the middle of the day. What if I work? I said, then mail it.
They could slide it under the door too.
Because when they mail it, when you give them the option to come down here or mail it, they're not going to do either.
We could also set it up so that they could pay online because we're not taking online payments.
No.
Well, here's the other suggestion. Put a lockbox down here and
I
have.
thought you had a lockbox.
Well, there is, but you guys take over the lockbox and you go down and collect the payments. Because again, everybody then goes like, I'm not going to City Hall to make the payments. I'm just dropping it in the door. Like the telegraphist girl that rented. She's like, I'm not going to City Hall. I put it in the door. It's not working. So if you have other options that you want to do, and you want to put a city-owned lockbox down there for them to drop payments, to have someone from City Hall go down there and take the payments out, by all means. Again, we're not being disagreeable on this.
Well, some of this needs to be discussed in another meeting, but it's like, if you do get that situation where there's going to be a change, you should notify the city about it.
Okay, absolutely. I'm not disagreeable with that.
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell an auditor, we don't have any records from here to here. We only have what we receive. And the auditors look at you like, you gotta get control of what's going on in City Hall. And that's the only reason why we're looking for this. We need control, because the way it looks, they look at you funny. You got X number of dollars in, is that really what you got in?
Well, again, and I agree. I'm not going to push back on
There's
that.
nothing else we can do.
But, the Civic Center.
We gotta change our behavior.
Right, well,
And that's what's gotta happen.
that's fine. The Civic Center has been run this way for decades,
I
And if
know
you're
when I
saying,
came
and
back.
if you, and again, I agree with you. Maybe there needs to be a change. Maybe there needs to be a better operating, way of operation. Nobody on the board is against that.
Yeah.
And if we want to put, if we want to work hand in hand with us on this, by all means, we'll gladly.
Could I here's my olive branch to you. I'd like to draft a resolution, and I will share it as a Word document so that we could go back and forth with this.
Okay.
Outlining procedures for how we're gonna handle these payments and rentals and everything.
Sure.
And we could go back and forth with it so that we have something in writing. We could adopt it as a resolution so that it's a procedure of the city, so that we could all have input on it until we have something that everyone's happy with.
That, I have no problem with that.
So I'll draft something up. Obviously, Tim will have his input because,
Sure.
we need to make sure that whatever we do is
Again,
legal to.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we're not trying to fight City Hall. We certainly want to get along with City Hall. We certainly want to get along with our community partners, but they also have to do the same thing. We can't continue on this way.
Yeah, we're all a service organization, and we have to provide good services. And really, I don't want any more emails. I mean, I had 33 emails today, and I just click. They didn't mean anything. You have to sit down and set the rules, the regulations by the auditors who tell us what to do.
Okay. So again,
I
set
mean,
up
we're
the
being
meeting.
told. So we gotta do, they just picked up about 60 pounds, 70 pounds of papers out today to go on audit. And the questions that they asked you, they look at you like, did you know that this $50 went out over here? And where is it now? And do you have the paperwork here? And you just like to look at them and say, what are you asking me about $50?
Absolutely.
But they
Because
have
they're
the right to,
auditors.
because we're paying them $25,000 to ask me those questions. And I gotta have the answers, and going forward, in the past, I could sit here and say, 2019, no idea where that paperwork is. You say you sent over your clearances, not a clue. There was 2.5 feet of paper on my desk, the credenza, the table, the chairs, the floors, and the door was locked. I had no idea who was in there.
Well,
And to
again-
find something,
Well, again, I mean,
Yeah.
all that paperwork was here. What happened to it?
Believe me.
I truly, I can't answer that for you.
Yeah, that's not.
I can tell you,
But here's
It-
here's all I know is that, the board is willing to make any changes that are going to be beneficial to the Civic Center, to the Recreation Board. Okay, we're
I'm gonna
open to
tell
any
you-
suggestions, and again, we'll discuss it as a board, and we'll move forward from there.
you mentioned about it's been handled this way for years. In 2010 through 2013, we had a lady who ran it. And sometimes she'd get stuck in traffic, and she'd call me, and I went down, and I had to open up. And I sat there until she got there. And one night, she was supposed to be there for 5 o'clock. She didn't make it till 8:30. And Monongahela was in there practicing. And I was there till 8:30. And fortunately, she wasn't in the accident, she was behind the accident. But we had somebody there, and...
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you this much. I spend many hours at the Civic Center on Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm not talking a walkthrough. I'm talking about I'll watch 4 or 5, maybe 6 basketball games. And I walk around and I talk to people, make sure everything is ship-shape between games. So, that is what we relate to the 2 new members, is that, you should be at the Civic Center at some point during the weekend. I understand most, if you got young kids, you can't dedicate that time. But at least come through, spend a half hour. At least make yourself known that, hey, I'm part of the rec board. Is there anything that you see we can do better? Nobody asks you to spend hours down there, but I know for myself, and I know for Marlon, we'll sit down there in the corner and watch games and walk around and talk to people Saturdays and Sundays. So
Do we need a manager down there to
if you can afford one,
supervise?
if you can afford one.
Okay. Just curious.
I stop through there, even when midget basketball is down there practicing, I stop in there. But again, they're there with their coaches. And, even when I played down there wasn't a manager down there watching practice. But if you're saying that you want that, okay. I just know the board can't afford it.
I don't think the city can.
Yeah, and I'm just curious to ask, what you thought about it.
No,
When
we've always said, if we can get a manager down there, I think the scheduling and the bookings and everything will work a lot better. Somebody that's just dedicated for that. But.
When you'd have someone like if you wanted to reserve it.
Isn't there somebody, is there somebody from you can get, with Marlene, wasn't that through community college program?
Initially she was, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so, is it possible you guys can reach out to them to see about?
I don't know if they have that program anymore or not.
I didn't think
Call
they
and
did,
find-
but there
I
might
can
be.
check on it, yeah.
Or even if there's some sort of recreation funding to do something like that.
Well, from my understanding is there's all kind of grants and stuff out there for education, parks and stuff.
Yeah.
We're working on many grants for many recreational items throughout the city. The tennis courts, the basketball court at Main Street Park, developing programs which will be recreation through the amphitheater. All those programs are something I'll be calling on WJPA to ask them if they will work with us during the summer months to announce from the amphitheater with these groups coming in to play and what groups they have. Those are all recreational items that we have to get in the city. And that's what I'm promoting myself. And, that's something I would want to talk to the recreation board.
Well, Rihanna brought that up about doing musical type,
Yeah, she told me that.
type things, but
She
again,
did?
that's generally something that the amphitheater committee was handling.
We did do that in the past, but in the last few years we went on hiatus because of all the drama that was
Right.
going on.
Well, that's what I told her. I said, let's not step on anybody's toes. If the amphitheater committee is going to start doing musical programs again, let's not step on their feet. Let's work with them together. And if there is any money to be made off it, we split it 50-50.
We always wanted to do stuff at 9th Street Park and the other parks, but we didn't have the capacity to do it.
Well,
You gotta remember one thing, I was the guy in the center of that being developed under Mayor Smith. And they tried to destroy it, and I kept it together, so I think about it all the time, making that something, even to the point that we used Perenni Boulevard as a 1 mile parking lot, 3 lanes, 4th lane we bring buses up, the firemen direct traffic, they make money, buck or two a car, park, into the park, shuttle bus into the park, massive crowds. That's what I want to see here. I've always wanted to see that, and if Rihanna has that, she'll be working with me.
Look, one thing is, like I said, everything that she proposed, everybody was like, that's a great idea. It's always a fresh start and new ideas. It always brings better change to what we're doing. So again, everything she promoted, everybody was like, man, that's a great idea. So there was no pushback in that. But if that's, again, we need to start working together as a city and stop the backstabbing.
Well, maybe
Okay.
we all
Start
get the same rule.
and
will
Dawn,
be okay.
stop the mean words.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's got to stop.
Okay,
If it
and-
doesn't stop, there's no way.
And, and just stop the sniping behind people's backs. It's got to stop. It gets us nowhere. If you realize it, we've been nowhere. We're still stuck in the same rut, and it's getting deeper and deeper. So again, if this is a new start between us and the city, then I'm all for it.
Well, you definitely need to make arrangements to,
So just let me know. My schedule is open.
I'll put the ad in the paper, and the door's open for a few people.
Well, again, maybe we won't have the full board here. Maybe we'll just have the two officers, the president and the vice president of the board, and then we'll just relay the information.
no,
We're
Well,
gonna
I'm just saying,
We're not up to 16 people.
Okay, that's fine.
We're fine. We're good, and we'll work out where we have to go. But it is going to extend beyond. I remember years ago when Freddie Feldman had recreation board. It was everything from bicycles on playgrounds to softball.
Well-
So those are a lot of things we have to get back here.
Well, All Will's Day was the biggest day in Monessen as a kid. Because You decorated your bike and Freddie Pellman gave you
That's right.
popsicles at the end.
Yeah, I remember that.
you know.
Yep. Every playground had a date. Monday was Lincoln, Tuesday was Jefferson, Wednesday was Washington, vocational was 30, whatever. But, I mean, those are things that really have to materialize out of there. And I am gonna work with WJPA. They don't know it yet, but they're gonna work with me.
Well, maybe they'll find out
Well,
now.
well, all I can say, guys, let's, you know, I think this was somewhat productive. I came here kind of angry at first,
No,
you know, but, you know, once you start to open up dialogue and have constructive conversations, and I think this has been somewhat constructive. I don't think that we've resolved every issue, but I think we're on our way to resolving those issues. You know, and again, as I say, John, how many times do I call you in a week? And we have conversations that go beyond what we were actually talking about. You know?
Well, I just, want to
Dan?
make sure that all the next conversations are, we had a great day, everything worked fine down there. That's, that would be it.
Okay.
That's what we have in this office now.
yeah.
That's the way it's running.
The biggest thing, Ed, is you need to get organized, and by meeting with council and Mr. Harai here,
Well, I did invite John to the meeting,
we could get,
but he respectfully declined.
we could, you know,
Yeah.
Zoom is.
organization, especially when the auditors come in, and they want us, well, what's this for? We all, you know, the envelope says, you know, that's sometimes I don't think acceptable to them. Like he says, they look at you like you're nuts.
Well, again, I'll resend the email to you, John. That is the entire January calendar of who rented, what should be in their envelopes. And from what I'm looking at, what I've already sent for this month balances out what is on the calendar. But if you think there's a better way I can do it, I'm open for all suggestions.
Just, we'll work on that. Just remember one thing, the money's coming in here, and we're paying bills out through that way.
Right.
So the auditors get right in the middle of that and say, okay, where's the checks and balances? Whenever I make a move, I send an email to one person, a copy to another. We move money. When it comes back, we move it back. Everything is checked. And so we just have to do it that way because that's the way the auditors do it.
And we're still trying to figure out where that $240 administrative
Yeah, I have-
fee.
We don't know either, so I saw that.
So can we get that money back out of the general fund?
That was back in Judy,
19.
when Judy was here.
Still.
I have no idea.
We're
Did
short
you see it on any
$240.
statement?
No, just what you just sent me on the profit and loss. There was a $240.
I sent you some other statements for 19.
No, it wasn't on the bank statements. It was on the profit and loss sheets, but it said
Right.
$240 administrative fee.
Yeah,
So, you know,
I checked, I
do I
had,
need to submit a letter to the city to get our $240 back?
They couldn't hurt, I mean, it would be
Well,
better to have it in writing.
I'll tell you, with all the administration I did, maybe they might owe me another $60 on top of that.
Yeah, well, on
So
top
wait a
of that,
second, where would the $240 go?
We don't
question.
know.
No, if the city gave it back to you, what would you do with it?
it goes in our general fund.
Which is where?
It's sent back over to us.
Back over here. So you give it back to the city? to-
Well, you know what, we
Well,
spent
it'll
about
go
what?
like in-
We spent about what, $240 in paper towels and cleaning supplies down there? Give us one. Right, Ike?
We sent some money, some stuff down there, I don't know.
And then, also, we're gonna meet with a lady that has a cleaning and disinfecting company. Now, she is working with youth basketball, that she is going to sanitize the gym with her equipment for free. Because I think her son and her grandson are playing, and she offered to do it, you know, for free. That she will sanitize the stands, the floor, the entire gym, you know, in between games. Because again, we're pausing, in between games, we're pausing 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Clear everybody out.
I'm gonna tell you something sounds really stupid, but get a slip off her and make sure she has some shorts.
Yeah, that's why I've already told Amy in the league that she has to be,
Just
she has
make
to be
sure she
insured.
has it, but sometimes they'll come in and, I know he asked one time, you got insurance for them? And I went, oh, yeah, I'll get it, I'll call them up. You gotta have it, it just,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I mean, she, for what I'm being told, I haven't met the lady yet, but she has a pretty large company, so I'm sure she
Yeah.
has her bonding and licensing and
yeah,
liability.
everyone we deal with, taking homes down there, they have to present $1 million bond. They have it all written
Right.
down and everything. And if it doesn't get that, we don't give the order to them.
Oh, exactly. So, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm gonna meet with her. I haven't met with her yet, but she's coming to our next meeting, and we'll present that, so we'll
Okay.
at least have more
Well,
information.
I would look forward to February 17th. To have a meeting down here, I'll confirm it tomorrow to you.
All right, just let me know, and I'll let the board know.
Then we can run the ad.
Pardon me?
We can run the ad.
Yeah, and the reason why we didn't have the, you know, we didn't set the schedule, because there was conflict between Brianna and her job on what day she could get here. And then I had an aunt pass away from COVID, so the week before. So that's why the meeting got pushed to the 25th. But we've always met the third Wednesday of each month. But again, if we need to change that, we'll certainly change it.
Right, I'll check it, there's, I'm pretty sure that it's open, because I know we don't use any of those days.
Wednesday, we're not normally here.
No.
Okay.
So, but I'll confirm it for you tomorrow. I'll send it through, and I'll say the dates are confirmed, they'll be in the paper. I'll give you the date, I'll put it in the paper.
Okay, sounds good.
All right,
All right.
very good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Smith, we'll see you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
On your Facebook page that you're not going to put stuff on, did you not put on who comes to my house because I think you're invading my privacy?
Actually, that's not me, but I know who it is.
I know who it is too. The
Okay.
camera is aimed at my house.
Well, I'll tell her, but it's not me.
I'm just telling you.
You've never seen that on my Facebook page,
I
but
don't
I
see
know,
your Facebook-
but I know.
I don't see your
All right.
Facebook page.
But I know who-
that other people forward what is said on that page.
Okay.
I'm
But-
just asking.
But, Ms. Smith, I'll relay the message.
I'm just asking.
I'll
If you
relay
want
it.
to talk about me, go ahead, but I'm asking that you don't say we.
You mean all those meetings that we have at your
Well,
house?
this is now the new city hall. I mean, I see it all. And
That's,
and wait, Dawn, why do you come to my house?
get papers notarized.
I'm a notary,
Well,
and I run that business.
I will relay that message, but again, this won't be up to them.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everybody.
You too. Mr. Lee,
Dawn.
take care.
Cole enjoyed seeing you today.
Well, I'm glad, because I didn't want, you thinking that Cole couldn't come see me,
Okay.
because I love that dog.
All right, item H, request to purchase a property at 221 Aliquippa Avenue. John, do you have, how did this come about?
2 years ago, the city put an ad in the paper and said that anybody that wanted to buy a home next to their home, and I guess across the street would be kind of adjacent to it, for $400. Faith Mosca was her name, it's closed now. She said that on Aliquippa, they have a parking problem, and some people are parking on the sidewalks, and she wanted to buy the lot across the street so that she'd have a place to park her car. Now, she's all paid up on taxes and everything as far as garbage.
This is an empty lot.
It's an empty lot.
Okay.
Now, the only thing I don't know is if the house was taken down by CDBG money. And I gotta find out about that. But there's a grassy area there, and if she parks her car on it, it's not gonna be the best thing. So she's gonna have to really put gravel down or do something, asphalt, in order to park the car.
That's closer to Ross Draver Street, right? The lot?
Yeah, Ross
I
Draver
think-
to Aliquippa,
I
right?
think that one was a CDBG demo.
Okay.
Because that was a recent one. I want to say that was that big blue house.
Well, if it's CDBG, that means that money that was spent on that house.
It's got a $6,000 or $7,000 lien against that property.
And she'd have to pay that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
So
can't
you
forget
definitely need to
CDBG
get that
is.
information for, and then this would go to the redevelopment authority
Yes,
to get?
it's owned by the city, so it would go to the redevelopment authority on a quick claim basis, and at that time, then they would sell it to her, but we have to approve it first. So what I'll do is, I'll see if I can find the paperwork on that. And if it is on there, then she's going to have to make a decision.
Yeah, because that's a federal issue, correct?
Pardon me?
That would be a federal issue that
Yes.
you have to pay that money.
That's under HUD money.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that would be her decision then. But I will, I'll check on that. I just thought about that recently, and I said, you know, I guess the house was taken down.
I think it was recent too.
But I think the other thing is, I don't know how many cars are on that street. Just,
I don't know.
yeah, and they probably could park around the corner on Second Street if they all work together.
That's a bad spot. Trying to turn onto that street.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it's one way. But
Yeah.
they're parking on the other side, on the sidewalks now. I saw them there. 2 cars on the sidewalk, block the whole sidewalk.
Isn't that illegal?
Yep.
Yeah, the police should actually give them a ticket.
Well, we need to let them know to tag them.
Yeah,
I also, speaking about that, I was coming back into town this weekend, and down there on Monessen Boulevard, they're parking in the grass. There's cars pulling up
I missed
into
that.
the divider and parking there.
yeah, Saturday night they had a party. I went by there and I saw the 2 cars. The people just bought a house that was fixed by Kenny, can't remember his name now. You know, near the island. Near the
Yeah,
island.
they were.
Yeah, they were parked up and
They
down
were up
there.
on they were up on the island.
Yeah, they parked up on the island.
And there's even a sign saying, "Do not park on the grass."
And do not walk your dog in the grass. And the police didn't do anything about it. So anyway, I'll have the information for the next meeting, for Monday, or Tuesday rather.
Item I, we have so far 3 applications for the Human Relations Commission. There are 5 open board positions. This is the one that we just created last month. And 2 of the 5 can be people from outside of the city. And the way that the ordinance is structured, the people that are appointed have to have some sort of background or a way to support the ordinance, which is the anti-discrimination ordinance. So the people that we have so far that have applied, Courtney Moran, who is from Monessen, she doesn't live here anymore. She was a Mensler, Courtney Mensler. Matthew Kowasik, who lives in Monessen, and Dawn Ratte, who lives in Monessen. And then I brought this up to John earlier, and I forgot to grab the current fee schedule, so I'll have to email it to everyone. But just wanted to see everyone's thoughts on updating the fee schedule, since the last time it was updated was 2019. But I don't have it in front of me, so I can't really give you any information as to where it stands now. So we'll have to email that to all of you so you can look at it and see if we need to update it. Yes.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But this last one here, should that be discussed, or should that be
That's a question for
executive
Tim. I don't know if item K is executive session material, or if
Yeah,
it's...
that would be an executive session material. I mean, I don't know what exactly is in the letter, but it deals with an employee and it is a wage increase, so that is an eligible item for executive sessions, personnel issues. So I would recommend, either that you guys talk amongst yourselves, or we go into executive session and talk about that specific item.
Would everyone want to go into executive session tonight?
I don't think
or-
this should be discussed in public.
No, but I mean, do you want to go into executive session tonight? Do you want to do it another time?
We could do it before next week's meeting.
I'm fine with that. I mean, Lois, Tony, Gil, your thoughts?
Because doing it on which day?
But he said before the regular meeting.
Before which, that's what I'm asking, what day?
Oh, February 9th.
That's when you want to do this executive session?
I guess we'd have to do it at like 6:30 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony, Lois?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll do that then. So plan for a 6:30 executive session on personnel to discuss it.
Now, when someone asks you this, after that class we took, you can't just say it's about personnel.
Right.
You have to say what it's about. You don't mention their name. You have to tell them what it's about.
Yep.
I found out that the city of Monessen has been running a lot of executive sessions over the last 6, 8 years or whatever, where they were just telling us it was for personnel reasons. That's not sufficient.
Right.
And just to make sure that we don't get any more litigation for violating the Sunshine Act, very important that we do it properly.
So this is discussion for
Yes,
employees about wages.
Yeah.
employees about wages.
Yes, remember last time too, you guys said that you were going to update us too about what happened with the police car too. We didn't get any update about
Oh,
what the...
yeah.
That's executive session
You're right.
too.
Okay, so let's add that to our executive session.
That's executive
agenda.
session too.
You're right. I'm making a note. Okay, so we'll plan for 6:30 on the day of the meeting to do that.
We can-
I just wanted to also update you that if you recall last year in March, there was that film crew that was going to do a TV show or a movie or whatever here, involving the old City Hall with Christian Center. And I did get a text from the producer this past week. They're planning to resume filming in March. He will be in touch with me to discuss when they will need to reroute traffic on Donner. Remember, last year we talked about that, and then COVID happened. So he'll get me some dates as to when they would need it rerouted and specifically where. So I don't have that yet.
We're going to need PennDOT approval on this?
Probably. I
Because
would think-
we were talking about shutting down Donner,
Yeah.
kicking them up on Schoonmaker
Yeah, so-
and bringing them down like.
Yeah, because we would have to make Schoonmaker 2 ways, and I want to say they said between 3rd and 6th that Donner would be closed.
3rd and 6th.
I think that's what it was last year though, but they haven't given me a definite location yet. So I'm waiting to hear from him as to when and where.
Expect pushback from
I am
the
aware.
merchants.
I am aware. I know that the producer, before COVID happened, was talking to all of the businesses, and I think all but 2 were fine with it. He's going to have to go and talk to them again.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have any more information. I just wanted to let you know that that it's in the works. And when we have more details, I will let you know, and we'll have to figure out what we're going to do to accommodate. But I think that's about it. So, public comments? Anyone? No? All right, I move to adjourn at 9:32.